भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Narada's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam, text number 22. Idam hi guna anuvarnanam yaduttama guna anuvarnanam idam hi pumsas tapasas shrutasya va svishtasya suktasya cha buddhidattayo avichyuto arthak kavibhir nirupita yaduttama shloka gunanuvardanam. Idam hi pumsas tapasa shrutasya va svishtasya suktasya cha buddhidattayo avichyuto arthak kavibhir nirupito yaduttama shloka gunanuvardanam. Idam hi pumsas tapasa shrutasya va svishtasya suktasya cha buddhidattayo avichyuto arthak kavibhir nirupito yaduttama shloka gunanuvardanam. Mi pumsas tapasa shrutasya va svishtasya suktasya cha buddhidattayo avichyuto arthak kavibhir nirupito yaduttama shloka gunanuvarnanam. Idam, this, he, certainly, pumsaha, of everyone, tapasaha, dint of austerities, shrutasya, by dint of study of the Vedas, va, or svishtasya, sacrifice, suktasya, spiritual education, cha, and buddhi, culture of knowledge, dattayo, charity, avichyutaha, infallible, arthaha, interest, kavibhihi, by the recognized learned person, nirupitaha, concluded, yet what? Uttama shloka, the Lord, who is described by choice poetry, guna anuvarnanam, description of the transcendental qualities of. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Learned circles, translation. Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerities, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, and charity, culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. Please repeat this translation after me. Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerities, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, and charity, culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord who is defined in choice poetry. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Human intellect is developed for advancement of learning in art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, economics, politics, etc. By culture of such knowledge, the human society can attain perfection of life. This perfection of life culminates in the realization of the Supreme Being Vishnu. The Shruti therefore directs that those who are actually advanced in learning should aspire for the service of Lord Vishnu. Unfortunately, persons who are enamored by the external beauty of Vishnu Maya do not understand that culmination of perfection or self-realization depends on Vishnu. Vishnu Maya means sense enjoyment, which is transient and miserable. Those who are entrapped by Vishnu Maya utilize advancement of knowledge for sense enjoyment. Sri Narada Muni has explained that all paraphernalia of the cosmic universe is but an emanation from the Lord out of his different energies, because the Lord has set in motion by his inconceivable energy the actions and reactions of the created manifestation. They have come to be out of his energy, they rest on his energy, and after annihilation they merge into him. Nothing is therefore different from him. But at the same time, the Lord is always different from them. When advancement of knowledge is applied in the service of the Lord, the whole process becomes absolute. The personality of Godhead and his transcendental name, fame, glory, etc. are all non-different from him. Therefore, all the sages and devotees of the Lord have recommended that the subject matter of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, and all other branches of knowledge should be wholly and solely applied in the service of the Lord. Art, literature, poetry, painting, etc. may be used in glorifying the Lord. The fiction writers, poets, and celebrated literators are generally engaged in writing of sensuous subjects. But if they turn towards the service of the Lord, they can describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Valmiki was a great poet, and similarly Vyasadeva is a great writer, and both of them have absolutely engaged themselves in delineating the transcendental activities of the Lord, and by doing so have become immortal. Similarly, science and philosophy also should be applied in the service of the Lord. There is no use presenting dry speculative theories for sense gratification. Philosophy and science should be engaged to establish the glory of the Lord. Advanced people are eager to understand the absolute truth through the medium of science, and therefore a great scientist should endeavor to prove the existence of the Lord on a scientific basis. Similarly, philosophical speculations should be utilized to establish the supreme truth as sentient and all-powerful. Similarly, all other branches of knowledge should always be engaged in the service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita also the same is affirmed. All knowledge not engaged in the service of the Lord is but nescience. Real utilization of advanced knowledge is to establish the glories of the Lord. And that is the real import. Scientific knowledge engaged in the service of the Lord and all similar activities are all factually Hari Kirtana, or glorification of the Lord. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. These are words spoken by Narad Muni. He is instructing Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva is not satisfied with the welfare activity he has performed so far in terms of putting the Vedas in writing and dividing the one Veda into 4 divisions and further elaborating the Vedic message in the form of Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka and Upanishad. These are the different parts of the Shruti, the original Vedas which is coming down in oral tradition from the beginning of creation. The original Vedas, as we say. So Vyasadeva has divided them in several ways. So he first of all divided the Vedas into Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. Then he further divided each of those 4 Vedas into different parts. Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka and Upanishad. So of these different parts of the Vedas, the Upanishads give the philosophical essence of the Vedas. But the Upanishads are many. Each of the Vedas have got their own set of Upanishads. So he further condensed the philosophical essence itself into Vedanta Sutra. And Vedanta Sutra is the most scholarly presentation of the essence of the essence, the cream of the philosophy of the Vedas, Vedanta Sutra. But he also realized that now Vyasadeva appeared at the end of Dwapar Yuga. So he could foresee by meditation that in the forthcoming age of Kali, people's ability to comprehend the Vedas and the Vedic knowledge and the Vedic divisions of Vedic knowledge and the philosophical essence will be very, very poor. So, for taking compassion upon the fallen souls in this Kali Yuga especially, he explained the same Vedic message by compiling the Puranas. The Puranas. Puranas are historical incidents which are describing the message of the Vedas in a more easily understandable way, because Puranas are describing some historical incidents which are very interesting even for the common man, like stories. But actually they are not stories, in the sense that they are not fiction. They are not created simply for the sake of giving the message. So in that sense, Puranas are not mythology. They are factual incidents, but he has selected those incidents which are in relationship with the Supreme Lord or his pure devotees. Such incidents he has selected, which actually are illustrative of the teachings of the Vedas. He also compiled the Mahabharata. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, quoting the Matsya Purana, that the Mahabharata is giving the overall message of all the Puranas. Because it's Puranas, 18 Puranas are actually compiled by Vyasadeva. 18 Mahapuranas and 18 Upapuranas. See the extensive work Vyasadeva has done. 18 Mahapuranas and 18 Upapuranas. And these 18 Mahapuranas have been described as meant for people in the mode of ignorance, people in the mode of passion. 6 of them, 6 of the 18 are meant for people in the mode of ignorance. And 6 other Puranas are meant for people in the mode of passion. 6 are meant for people in the mode of goodness. And even after doing all this work, and Upapuranas are supplementary to the main Puranas. Even after doing all this, he was not satisfied. So he further brought together all the essential messages of the Puranas, the Mahapuranas, Upapuranas, together into Mahabharata. So Srila Jiva Goswami explains that Mahabharata gives one scripture which gives the teachings of the Puranas in a very easily understandable way, because it centers around the story of the Pandavas and Kauravas. And very interesting way he has described, like a nice story. He has developed the whole thing. But all through he is presenting the teachings of the Vedas and the message of the Puranas throughout the Mahabharata. But even after doing all this, he was not satisfied that I have done enough. He was feeling a dissatisfaction in his heart, that something is lacking in whatever I have done. And while he was contemplating what could be that deficiency in all that work I have done for the welfare of the people, especially of Kali Yuga, his spiritual master Narad Muni arrived in his ashram. And that is a description at the end of the previous chapter, the 4th chapter. The title of the 4th chapter, The Appearance of Narada. So Prabhupada says that, very interesting. Narada has appeared in this chapter. Prabhupada says Narada has appeared in this chapter actually to bless all of us with the instruction to Vyasadeva that he compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Narada instructed Vyasadeva, because Vyasadeva inquired from Narada, why is it that I am feeling dissatisfaction even after having done so much work? So Narad Muni directly points out that you have not sufficiently glorified Krishna in all your works. You not sufficiently glorified Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada explains it's not that Vyasadeva has not glorified Krishna. And Sripad Madhvacharya says, Hari sarvatra giyate, Vede Ramayane chaiva bharate, Purane bharate tatha, Adi anta madhye cha, Hari sarvatra giyate. Actually, only the Supreme Lord is glorified in everything, all the Vedic literature. It's only glorification of the Supreme Lord. But Vyasadeva says, Narad Muni says, that even though you are glorified, you are not sufficiently glorified. So what is the meaning of not sufficiently glorified? Because in all the other literature, other than the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are subject matters of the glorification of Krishna, and in addition, there are so many other subjects. These other subjects are called Traigunya Vishaya Veda, dealing with subjects or topics of this material world, actions and reactions of the three modes of material nature. This whole material world is analyzed in the Bhagavad Gita as consisting of three gunas, which are actually interacting and producing so many changes which basically bewilder all the conditioned souls who are desirous of enjoying materially by exploiting the resources of material nature. So in a sense, material existence is nothing but the interactions of these gunas. And the gunas are set in motion at the beginning of creation simply by the glance of Mahavishnu. This is the beginning of creation. And at the end, when everything is destroyed after some duration of time, the duration of the universe, then everything is put to rest again by the process called destruction by the arrangement of the Lord through Lord Shiva, by arrangement of Vishnu. Everything is destroyed. So everything becomes completely, comes to a standstill, the whole material existence. Jagat. Jagat means that which is moving. So as long as that creation is maintained, there seems to be a lot of movement, lot of things happening. But everything comes to a standstill. And when everything is destroyed ultimately. So what is the ultimate meaning to this creation, maintenance, destruction, which keeps on going cyclically? So the real purpose is explained by the Acharyas and by Prabhupada, that the purpose of the creation is that it is to give a chance to the conditioned souls to try to enjoy independently, independent of Krishna, and realize that we can never be happy or never really can enjoy independent of Krishna. And then it is possible only to be happy and really enjoy life only in cooperation with Krishna, in association with Krishna. So to realize this, a chance is given through this material creation. So that real purpose is very difficult to ascertain by one's own independent research or by one's own endeavor. That's because every jiva is a very, very tiny, insignificant spirit soul and has got fundamentally 4 kinds of defects, especially in the material existence. That we have limited senses and we are prone to make mistakes, and we are invariably under the influence of this illusory energy, the material energy, and we have got the cheating propensity because of our strong desire to enjoy and lord over material nature. Enjoy material resources and lord over material nature. So with these defects, nobody can arrive at the truth of this, the entire material existence. What is the purpose, or what is the reality, or what is fact? It appears like everything in this material world is permanent, but from the Bhagavad Gita, we understand that this material world is temporary. It appears like the material world, there is a lot of opportunity for enjoying in so many ways. But actually, the essence of material existence is miseries. So Krishna summarizes all this in the Bhagavad Gita, but Vyasadeva explains and elaborates on this explanation and description of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita by expanding it in the Bhagavatam under instruction of Narada. So Narada, in brief, he instructs Vyasadeva, and that is the title of this 5th chapter, Narada's instructions in Srimad Bhagavatam. So first of all, Narada says, you're dissatisfied because you're not fully glorified Krishna. So you write or compile or compose one literature exclusively glorifying Krishna. So therefore, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this Bhagavatam is Krishna Samhita. Samhita means Vedic literature. So this is the Vedic literature which is exclusively glorifying Krishna. Exclusively glorifying Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually describes Bhagavatam as Amala Purana. And even the 13th chapter of the 12th canto also, Bhagavatam is described as the Amala Purana by Sutta Goswami. Amala Purana means it is not having any tinge of descriptions of these material interactions of the modes. Nothing of material subject matter. Nothing of dharma, artha, kama, moksha, which is generally the 4 purusharthas described in all other Vedic literatures. So it is exclusively describing Krishna, the supreme absolute truth, in his feature as the personality of Godhead. The Upanishads also describe the absolute truth, but Upanishads contain mainly descriptions of the absolute truth in the impersonal feature, mainly in the impersonal feature. But the descriptions of the supreme absolute truth in his personal feature is a special thing about this Bhagavatam. The personality of Godhead is the subject matter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, the personality of God is the subject matter of all the Vedic literature. Because Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, is the source of everything. So he is the source of all the energies And one of the energies is the material energy. So in the Bhagavatam, Krishna's description is there in terms of he as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the clear explanation is given as Krishna being the source of everything. Even though in the Vedanta Sutra it is described that the absolute truth, the personality of God Krishna, is the ultimate source of everything, and everything is an emanation from Krishna, but it is very, very cryptic. Janmadhyasya yataha. Now that is elaborated in the Bhagavatam by Vyasadeva. So Bhagavatam is described as the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the author himself. Vedanta Sutra is not easy to understand, but Vyasadeva himself has explained the Vedanta Sutra in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So coming to today's verse, in this particular instruction that Narad Muni is giving to Vyasadeva, he is telling that the ultimate purpose of advancement of knowledge is the transcendental description of the Supreme Lord, who is defined in choice poetry, Uttama Shloka. All those who are self-realized, learned philosophers, they glorify the Supreme Lord by the best poetry, the best compositions among all literary compositions are those which describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada says this Srimad Bhagavatam. He says Srimad means full of beautiful descriptions. So Vyasadeva, the great learned Vyasadeva, Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krute Kimva Paraihi. This is the description of the Bhagavatam. That Srimad Bhagavatam is the most beautiful literature, composition by the great learned Vyasadeva, Mahamuni Krute. There are many thoughtful personalities. Muni means very thoughtful personality. But among them, Mahamuni is Vyasadeva. The greatest among all such thoughtful persons is Vyasadeva, because he's compiled the beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is actually, as Prabhupada himself says in the preface, that it's not in the preface, it's somewhere else. Prabhupada says that Bhagavatam contains a description of all subjects very beautifully presented by the great learned Vyasadeva elaborately, and therefore it is an encyclopedia of the all branches of knowledge. It's a real encyclopedia, complete. So therefore this is based on this particular verse in which Narad Muni is telling that ultimately the advancement of knowledge ends in transcendental descriptions of the Lord. That is the highest perfection to be achieved by culture of all types of knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada says that advanced people are eager to understand the absolute truth through the medium of science. Therefore, a great scientist should endeavor to prove the existence of the Lord on a scientific basis. So, anybody engaged in culturing knowledge, any type of knowledge, be it art or science or philosophy or psychology or any branch of knowledge, the goal is described here. The ultimate goal of all such culture of knowledge is to arrive at a clear understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the ultimate cause of everything, ultimate source of everything, and the perfection of the understanding of Krishna is the transcendental descriptions of Krishna, the transcendental description of Krishna. Yad uttama shloka gunanuvarnanam. Avichito arthaha, the infallible purpose of all advancement of knowledge is the description of the Supreme Lord, and this is positively concluded by learned circles. Kavibir nirupito. Srila Prabhupada says that Vedic knowledge is not a question of research, because our methods of research are all defective. So we can never arrive at the perfect conclusion by our own endeavor, either individually, collectively. Only by accepting to know from the perfect source of all knowledge, that is Krishna. Veda means that knowledge which is given by Krishna coming down in parampara. And Krishna says this in the Bhagavad Gita, that before he instructed Arjuna, he already had instructed the sun god in the science of yoga. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam vivasvan manave praha manurikshva kave bravit evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo vidhu. So the system of culturing knowledge is to receive the perfect knowledge from the perfect source, either directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead or from his representative, the bona fide spiritual master, coming down in disciplic succession. So the knowledge is handed down, praptam, emam parampara praptam. It is received from the perfect source. And in that way, that knowledge is directly received and understood and transmitted, and it is the perfection of our endeavor to cultivate knowledge, or endeavor to search for the truth, or endeavor to attain self-realization simply by this receiving this perfect knowledge from the proper source. So therefore, the scientists or the philosophers who are searching for the truth, or scientists who are trying to find the original cause of everything, ultimate cause of all causes, that is presented by the Srimad Bhagavatam and all the Vedic literature for that matter. If they receive such Vedic knowledge from the bona fide spiritual master coming in parampara, So simply by studying the Bhagavatam, we will come to know Krishna. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita also, Vedaishcha sarvair ahameva vedyam, that Krishna is to be known from all the Vedas. All the Vedas there mean, literally it means all the Vedas, all the branches of knowledge. Krishna is the only object of all knowledge. And also by all processes of knowledge. In the 13th chapter, Krishna describes what is jnana. There Srila Prabhupada says that jnana is described as knowledge, and that knowledge, Krishna says, knowledge of the field of activity and the knower of the field is knowledge. And Krishna also says jnana, knowledge, consists of 20 processes of acquiring knowledge. And that also he describes. 20, Prabhupada says 20 items of knowledge. Actually, these 20 items of knowledge in the 13th chapter, nothing but the 20 processes for attaining the perfection of the ultimate knowledge. And the object of knowledge is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, the object of knowledge is described as the soul, but the soul is described by Krishna in the 13th chapter as the individual soul and the super soul. And the super soul is described as the ultimate controller, ultimate source of everything, ultimate Lord. In the 15th chapter, Yasmat ksharam atitoham aksharaadapi chottamaha atosmi loke vedecha pratita purushottamaha. No, before that the verse says Paramatmeti chapyukto. No, what is that? Paramatma is actually the Supreme Lord Himself. Paramatma, the Super Soul, is the Supreme Lord Himself. And He is transcendental to the infallible and the fallible souls. So He is the Supreme, ultimate Lord of everyone and everything. So that is very clearly established in all the teachings of the acharyas and all the explanations in the proper explanations of the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Puranas and the Itihasas, Mahabharata, everything. So it is very clearly established. But this ultimate truth is not possible to be ascertained simply by our own endeavor, either through knowledge or through austerity or through chanting of hymns or through pious activities or performing sacrifice. Therefore, Narad Muni is telling all types of austerities, study of the Vedas, performing sacrifices, chanting of hymns, everything culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Supreme Lord, which is the subject matter of the Bhagavatam exclusively. So I'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.